Ghosts of the Deep. Oh boy, this one's a lot of fun. This is the second revamped dungeon as a part of Bungie's Rite of the Nine update, replacing Spire of the Watcher, meaning we've got a lot more cool weapons to chase, but the trade-off is, it's harder. A lot harder. At least on Ultimatum mode. The truth is, Bungie actually made this dungeon a lot easier compared to the original version. Instead of adding more complex mechanics like they did in Spire of the Watcher, they actually reduced some of the pain points like boss health and encounter length that were present when this dungeon first launched. In today's guide, we'll be covering all the mechanics in full, so even if you've never played the original, you'll walk away from today's video with a complete understanding of how to tackle this dungeon from start to finish. And if you're also looking to check out the new cutscenes that dropped today, we'll be including both the locations of the new Ghosts of the Deep collectibles, as well as the cutscenes later in the video. First off, the Emissary of the Nine has 2 new quests for you to pick up. Head on over to the Eternity destination in the Director and click on the Rite of the Nine tab. Once you've entered in, you'll head on over to the Emissary. You can pick up these 2 quests along with a couple additional bounties. Completing these 2 quests will give you Cold Comfort and No Survivors. The quests themselves are super simple. Just complete all of the encounters in the dungeon and come back to the Emissary once you've finished. That's it. Now I know a lot of you have been saving up manifolds to spend at the chest in the Rite of the Nine social space. Before you buy anything, you need to be aware that Bungie changed how this chest rewards loot. In order to receive adept drops from the chest, you first need to earn those weapons in Ultimatum mode of the dungeon. So I highly recommend, if you do plan on running Ultimatum mode, save your manifolds, spend them later after you've completed the dungeon. And if you're looking to farm for a specific weapon, make sure that you attune it before you hop into the dungeon. I attuned for New Pacific Epitaph, but funny enough, I actually got every adept version of all of the weapons to drop from just one run. So feel free to target your favorite weapon, and you should earn the adepts for all the other weapons naturally as you play. Now with all that out of the way, let's get into the dungeon guide, starting with the first encounter. When you spawn in, you'll be on the edge of an island in the Arcology on Titan. Go ahead and pull out your Sparrow and follow this path until you find yourself at a bunch of Hive statues. Place the rally banner and shoot the 2 knights behind the statues in order to begin the first encounter. Our first order of business is to kill a Hive Ogre named the Soulfire Binder. He can spawn on one of 3 paths leading away from the statues, left, middle, or right, and killing him will create a green trail along the ground, leading you in the direction of our first objective. Follow the path as best you can. It's going to eventually trail off and disappear, so at that point, you need to look into the sky for some floating Hive runes. They're giant circles with strange symbols inside of them, so once you see them, they're really hard to miss. And I cannot stress this enough, make sure to keep a mental note of what symbol you see inside of the circle. The entire dungeon hinges on the mechanic of remembering symbols. Now, a big issue that you might run into is a lot of people use different names for these symbols. We'll put a graphic on screen of the most common names, but you may find that your fire team members actually use different names than you do. So try to get that figured out beforehand, because if you can get your symbol communications right, then you're going to have a way easier time later down the line. Now, once you walk beneath one of these floating symbols, a ton of ads are going to spawn. Once you kill all of the ads, the symbol will disappear and a green trail, similar to before, will lead you to the next symbol. It'll be the same symbol, but it's going to be located at a different spot. Once you've done this 3 times, additional ads will spawn, including a Hive Guardian. Killing this Hive Guardian and crushing its ghost will give you a buff called Vestige of Light. This buff will last for 1 minute and 20 seconds and kill you when the timer hits 0. Whoever crushes the Hive Ghost will receive the buff. That person needs to get back to the Hive statues as soon as possible. When you arrive back at the Hive statues, there will be ads waiting for you, including a Hive Wizard. Killing the Hive Wizard will drop a pool of deep sight on the ground. Once you interact with that pool, a Hive rune will appear on each of the statues. The person who has the Vestige of Light buff from crushing the ghost needs to go and interact with the statue that has a matching symbol to the one you saw floating in the air. Choosing the correct statue will progress the encounter forward. Choosing the wrong statue will kill you instantly. After dunking the buff, another ogre will spawn, and you'll repeat this process successfully 3 times. Now, in the original version of the dungeon, you actually had to do this 4 times. So honestly, great change here. I'm pretty sure Bungie listened to feedback about this encounter, because one of the biggest problems with Ghosts of the Deep is that it's just so time consuming for no reason. Now, if you're playing on Ultimatum mode, you're going to be running against the clock. You've got a 7-minute timer. When it hits 0, it wipes your team. So you got to complete the encounter before the timer runs out. Now for builds here, you need to focus on survivability and ad clear. Support auto rifles were great alongside Speaker Sight Warlock, for those healing turrets, but a weapon I highly recommend is Ariana's Vow. It's a solar exotic hand cannon in the energy slot, and it does work on the Hive wizards. Landing one precision hit will break the wizard's shield and cause an ignition that kills all of the adds surrounding it. It's a great pick. If you got it, use it. It makes this encounter super easy. After completing the first encounter, chest will spawn, you can grab your loot, the sealed door will open, and you'll proceed to the traversal section. Now, before I let the gameplay take over, there's a couple things to note here. On the water traversal section, on ultimatum mode, you actually drown way faster after your pressure meter hits 0. So be safe, wait for your teammates to grab bubbles. You don't have as much leeway as you normally do. Now, the first collectible is located in this section, so we'll go ahead and timestamp that on the screen right now, in case you want to just jump ahead and find out where that is. Once you arrive at this portion of the traversal section, you may notice the way forward is blocked off by a wall with a hive symbol floating in front of it. This is a new mechanic for Eternity and Ultimatum difficulty. To remove this wall, you need to find and kill a large ogre named a Rune Keeper. These doors show up in a couple of places during the traversal section, with the final one here having 3 symbols. This door not only requires you to kill 2 Rune Keeper ogres, but the final symbol is tied to a boss level Hive Guardian. Luckily, this guy isn't too difficult to kill, and you're rewarded with a chest once you put him down. You can also find the first Rite of the Nine collectible in this room once the Hive Guardian is defeated, which is located right here. Continue on this path until you reach the second encounter. Our second encounter is our first boss fight, Ecthar, and it can be pretty intense if you're not paying attention. To start the encounter, shoot any of the adds kneeling in front of the rally banner, which will summon Ecthar into the room. 3 yellow bar knights will then spawn in, one on the left, one on the right, and one in the back of the room. Kill all 3 of them to spawn in an ogre in the back of the room, which when killed will send Ecthar underwater below the arena and spawn in a deep sight pool at the brazier where you killed the acolytes to start the encounter. Once you interact with the deep sight, there will be 3 tiles on the wall that light up with some hive runes. In the underwater section beneath the arena are a ton of these hive runes. We'll put a map on screen of all the different locations, but the next step is to jump down into the underwater section room and to activate the 3 runes that you saw on the tiles. Send 1 player on your fire team down to activate these symbols. But keep in mind, the entire time you're doing this, Ecthar is going to be chasing you, and you'll be running out of oxygen, so you got to grab bubbles, find the sigils, dodge Ecthar. It's a lot of things going on at once. If that isn't stressful enough, if you grab the wrong symbol, you die instantly. So don't do that. Once you've interacted with all 3 runes successfully, some text will appear in the bottom left of your screen that says the runes successfully align with a crackle. Your job underwater is now complete. Head over to the giant water bubble elevator that'll take you back upstairs and reunite you with your teammates. Each time the person underwater activates a correct symbol, a Lucent Hive wizard is going to spawn up above. The people who are up top, your job is to take out ads and kill these wizards. Similar to before, crushing the ghost of one of these hive wizards is going to give you the Vestige of Light buff. They have a countdown timer. If it hits 0, you die. You can stack this buff up to 3 times, and to start the damage phase, you need to deposit one of these buffs into each of the 3 hive statues scattered across the room. There's one on the right, one on the left, and one in the back. Make sure you wait until everyone on your fire team is ready to do damage before you dunk that last buff. Once you've dunked all 3 buffs, Ecthar is going to spawn in the center of the room. At this point, he is completely immune to damage. At the same time, a yellow bar knight will spawn at the rally flag location. Killing this knight will drop a green pool on the ground that will grant a buff called Piercing Light when you step in it. This buff is what allows you to break Ecthar's shield. Another change Bungie made in Rite of the Nine is these shields actually have way less health than they used to in the original version of the dungeon. Before, you were essentially forced to run Arbalest just to break the shield in time to do damage. Now, you can use any weapon you like. Once Ecthar's shield is broken, lay into him with as much damage as you can. You'll notice that his health bar now has a glowing yellow health gate. Once you cross that threshold of damage, Ecthar will cast his super, and he's going to hit a lot harder, so be careful. After a short period of time, damage phase will end, and you got to repeat that entire process all over again. Once you kill Ecthar, make sure you crush his ghost. If you don't, he's going to respawn, not at full health, but it's enough health to be annoying. So don't make that mistake. Celebrate after you've crushed the ghost. If you're playing on Ultimatum difficulty, you will only have 3 phases to kill Ecthar. Now onto the builds. Survivability is super important in this encounter. You will be very quickly overwhelmed with ads. Ecthar is also super aggressive. He throws around suppressor grenades. He can one-hit melee you on Ultimatum difficulty. It's not fun. Again, options like Speaker's Sight and support frame auto rifles really help out here. Due to how small the arena size is, some area denial frames like Velocity Baton with the stabilizing rounds actually works really well too. For DPS, our options are actually pretty straightforward. The most optimal route is to run 2 Titans and 1 Warlock. The Warlock should run Song of Flame with Tractor Cannon, and the 2 Titans should run Winterbite with Worm God Caress. 1 Titan needs to be on Banner of War, while the other can run Thunder Crash for some extra damage. If you aren't able to run this setup, some great alternatives are Legend of Acreus or Lord of Wolves. Once Ecthar is defeated, drop back down into the water here and follow this path to reach the final encounter. The second dungeon collectible is in this traversal section, so again, we'll have a timestamp on screen so you can jump right to it. Simmumah, the final encounter of Ghost of the Deep. It gives you a little bit more breathing room than Ecthar, but this encounter can really test your endurance. To start the encounter, finish the ghost floating above Oryx's chest cavity. There's a couple of things to keep track of. First and foremost is Simmumah herself. If you get caught off guard, her primary fire will delete you, and if you don't take out the moss that she spawns, it's going to be absolute chaos trying to stay alive. The second guy you gotta watch out for is a sword knight called Vorlog. He's a part of the mechanic to beat the encounter, but if you let him sneak up on you, he can one-hit melee you, so try and keep tabs on him at all times. After crushing the ghosts, the first thing you need to do is find the deep sight pool that is spawned somewhere in the arena. Activating it will reveal 3 nodes that correlate to different parts of Oryx's body, and these 3 nodes will form a triangle. Oryx's chest will always be one of the nodes. When you step underneath one of these nodes, a green circle will appear on the ground. You need to stand inside of this green circle and kill the sword knight Vorlog. You won't have to look for him. He'll eventually find you. Once he comes charging your direction, take him out, but make sure everyone who's shooting at him is inside of that green circle, or it won't progress the encounter. I mentioned earlier that Oryx's chest is always one of the nodes that's going to form that triangle between his different body parts. However, when you go in the green circles to kill Vorlog, you cannot start at the chest. It will not progress the encounter. You need to start at a different body part and then go to the chest as your second or your third option. After you kill Vorlog once, you'll know you're doing it correctly if you see a green circle appear between you and Oryx's chest. Simmumah will teleport above the circle you stood in where you killed Vorlog, and the next step is to position yourself on the other side of this green circle, and when you look back at the circle where you killed Vorlog from, you'll see a Taken King symbol. Your job here is to line up that Taken King symbol so that it fits inside of the circle that you just positioned yourself on the other side of. I know that sounds a little confusing, but just watch the footage here and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. While you're trying to line up the 2 symbols, there's actually an audio cue that plays in the background that steadily increases in volume as you get to the correct spot. The game is never going to ask you to jump in the air to line up those 2 symbols. There's always going to be a spot where you can stand and line those 2 symbols up. Once you've lined up the Taken King symbol and the circle correctly, both of the symbols will disappear, a hive rune will spawn above the node where you killed Vorlog, and Simmumah will spawn another wave of moths that I highly recommend you kill immediately. Complete this process 2 more times until all 3 corners of the triangle have a hive rune displayed above them. Now at this point, you've probably noticed that there's certain sections of the arena wall that are essentially just giant doorways of water. These doorways are the entrances to 3 different rooms that are outside of the main arena. Each of these rooms houses a different Lucent Hive Guardian. The left room has a knight similar to Ecthar, the top room has an acolyte, and the right room has a wizard. When you walk into one of these rooms, there will be a random hive sigil floating in the air. Just like previous encounters, you need to remember what this hive symbol is, and make sure you take note of it before you kill the Lucent Hive Guardian, because once you do, that hive rune is going to disappear. Once you crush the hive ghost, you're going to receive another vestige of light buff. Again, same as before, if the timer hits 0, you die. Head back to the main arena. Someone on your team needs to find and activate the pool of deep sight, allowing you to dunk your buff on the node of the matching hive rune that you took note of earlier. If you dunk on a node that doesn't match your hive rune, you die instantly. Repeat this process 2 more times to start DPS. So as a quick recap, 3 hive runes, 3 hive guardians, collect the deep sight, dunk the buffs. Once you do, this starts the damage phase. Now you may be tempted to send 1 member of your team into each room to collect each buff, but I highly recommend, especially if you're on ultimatum mode, that you all 3 go into the same room at the same time. It will take longer, but there's just too many bad things that can happen when all 3 people split up. Now, similar to Ecthar, do not dunk the final buff until everyone is ready to do DPS. Once you dunk the final buff, 3 pools of piercing light will spawn, correlating to the 3 corners of the triangle of hive runes. Simmumah will have a shield. In order to break that shield, you have to get the buff from standing in one of these pools. Again, just like Ecthar, there will be highlighted portions of the health bar. Clearing that section will cause Simmumah to cast her super, although I wouldn't worry about it. It's not nearly as threatening as Ekthar's super. Just like Ecthar, Simmumah's shield is way lower than it used to be. After a short period of time, Simmumah will become invulnerable again, and you'll need to repeat all of the previous steps to reach the damage phase once more. And once you've killed her, again, similar to Ecthar, make sure you finish her ghost. Do not forget to finish the ghost. If you're attempting this on ultimatum difficulty, just like the previous boss, you'll only have 3 damage phases to secure the kill. Now, looking at your loadout and strategy, the most important thing that you can do to stay alive in this encounter is positioning. I don't care if you have triple arc resist on. If you are next to Simmumah on Ultimatum difficulty, she will annihilate you. You need to learn very quickly how to avoid her, because if you don't, it's just going to be banging your head against a wall constantly. Simmumah is the biggest threat on the entire field. Every time you complete a node, Simmumah is going to spawn more moths. You need to kill those moths immediately. Period. No questions asked. Now, the one thing that you can't avoid is grabbing the deep sight. And the problem with grabbing deep sight is that it actually animation locks you. So while you're sitting there waving your hand around like an idiot, Simmumah just starts railing you, and there's really nothing you can do. However, there is a method to grab deep sight and not get animation locked. The tech that I use actually coincides with my build quite well. I'm usually running healer, so full support auto with healing grenade, speaker sight, and a phoenix dive. What I like to do is I'll throw my healing grenade on top of the deep sight and position myself so that when I use my phoenix dive, I'll land right on top of it. When you land, you want to hold down the interact button to grab the deep sight, but then it won't animation lock you and you can run straight out of it. Now, if there's more tech that I'm unaware of that works on other classes, feel free to drop that down in the comments below. Some other methods to grabbing deep sight are making sure your teammates are shooting support auto rifles at you the entire time, or even just making sure that Simmumah isn't aggroed to you when you grab it. However, those methods aren't super reliable when you're running and gunning because someone might have a buff that's about to kill them, you gotta grab the deep sight quickly, and Simmumah can change your aggro at a moment's notice, and there's just a lot of factors that play into that. So having a method that you can use just by yourself that guarantees that you get the deep sight almost every single time is really, really powerful. When it comes to the survivability, again, I'm going to go back to just maxing out healing here. Support autos are really, really good if you can equip your entire team with them. Having a warlock, running speaker sight, healing grenade, all of that is going to be super helpful to staying alive in precarious situations. As far as damage goes, you want to rock 2 Queen Breakers and a Divinity. It's a no-brainer. It's a very comfortable 2-phase. Titans should be on Storm's Keep, Warlocks with Well Radiance, and Hunters on Golden Gun. If you don't have access to those exotics, you're still going to want to run a legendary linear fusion of some kind, because this boss has a much higher crit multiplier, so you're going to do way more damage with headshots than you are if you use something like a grenade launcher. Now, when it comes to farming, which encounter is largely dependent on the difficulty you're running. If you're in Eternity or Explorer mode, Ecthar is a fantastic option. It's a very quick fight and should be a very easy kill. If you're running on Ultimatum mode for Adepts, the easiest and safest encounter to farm will be the first one. However, if you're equipped to handle Ultimatum Ecthar, it is still an extremely quick encounter. On top of these options, you can easily farm the chest in the Traversal section. After opening the chest that spawns when you kill the Hive Guardian, you can wipe, respawn, and quickly kill it again. This leads to very quick and efficient weapon drops. However, the chest drops very few manifolds and single perks in both columns. So pick whichever method works for you, and good luck getting those god rolls. If you'd like to see the cutscenes that play after getting the collectibles, we'll go ahead and put those up right now. And that is our entire guide for Ghosts of the Deep. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this is helpful. Again, this one is a very difficult dungeon compared to the others in the lineup. So there's a large majority of people who will probably just run it once and that's it. Me personally, I'm a big New Pacific Epitaph fan. There's a Warlock build with Fellwinters and finishers that just makes that thing so good. We may even put out a dedicated build for that on Prismatic. It's not the best thing in the world, but it can kind of hang and it's super fun, at least in my opinion. But if you're looking for a no survivors with Incandescent or even a Cold Comfort, just in case Heathen's Vengeance gets nerfed, all I can say is have fun and good luck grinding. Once again, thank you guys all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.